Hi, good morning. Okay, for those on you, for those of you on replay, I hope you've had a good day or a good evening or a good night or whatever time zone it is for you. I'll just give those who are coming in live a moment to join me. And then you can hear all about the exciting time I've had since yesterday's live. So hopefully you've all had a chance to have a look at the day 4 training. So that was in the email and the Facebook. I apologise profusely to those who usually watch the recording of it. I have now recorded it. I'm just waiting for it to upload. But yeah, there's been a bit of an issue here. So some of you may remember that yesterday I mentioned in my little prelim chat that we had a severe weather warning for the afternoon. Well, yeah, it was really severe. And in fact, by mid-afternoon, they had moved from telling us we were going to be receiving large hail to we were going to be receiving giant hail. So we had incredible winds, incredible rain, and huge amounts of large hail, and then even more amounts of small hail, which of course has blocked all of the drains. There are businesses all through town who have had water come in through their ceilings because all the drains have been blocked by the hail. So my family and everybody are safe. We are fine. Unfortunately, my brother's computer business had water come in through the roof, so they've got a bit of damage, but they're insured, so they'll be okay. But my biggest problem is that we have no power. So we haven't had power since about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. It's now 9:30 in the morning. Which has been okay. We have power banks. I work for the emergency services, so I'm reasonably organised and ready for emergency events. However, it does mean that unfortunately I am back to recording this on my mobile. So I'm really hoping that the internet is going to hold up for you guys. If there's anything that you don't catch, or I was told that apparently my voice was running on. My voice had stopped and my mouth was running on. It was really out of sync last time. So if that happens again, let me know and I will re-record this. I'll go to somewhere where there is proper internet and re-record it. So they're telling us that the power should come back on by about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I've moved all of my fridge stuff to my mother-in-law's house, and hopefully the freezer will hold out for 24 hours, but otherwise we have options for that as well. So yeah. So those of you in South Australia who have been impacted by this huge storm, I hope you are all safe and all okay, and hopefully any damage is repairable. And with that said, let's get started on today's training. So this week we have sort of started on the foundational level because we want you guys to be able to input these techniques and things into your day-to-day life. So by, first of all, learning to establish baseline, we can make sure that the analysis that we're doing is correct. We then moved into actually learning to pay attention fully when we're having a conversation with others to allow us to receive all of the messages that they're sending out. And then yesterday we covered off on the open and closed body language and what that overall picture can look like and what that can communicate to us. And then today we started to get into the nitty gritty of what does each hand gesture and arm position actually mean. Now, as I mentioned in the training, the body language itself is based on primitive movements. So not only do we see them in humans, but we see them in other mammals as well, and especially monkeys. It's pretty incredible actually reading body language in monkeys. But the reason for this is that it's inbuilt into our brains. It's something that has evolved over time, whereas gestures, so hand gestures mainly, are learned behaviors. So they are things that we learn based on the environment that we grow up in and the culture that we grow up in. So for me, the body language techniques that I teach are all Western culture. I do reference other cultures because I love to learn about them. And if you have any specific gestures that you know of that come from your culture, and they may be the same gestures that we use here in Australia, but they might have a different meaning. So I know that thumbs up has a very different meaning in Greece than it does in Australia. But yeah, so let me know if you have any special cultural gestures that you are able to share with me. But yeah, so my teachings are Western culture and are obviously influenced by my Australian upbringing. However, a lot of the people that I have studied are American. So there is a lot of crossover. And obviously with, normal TV and social media and those sorts of things, we do have a lot of crossover between the UK, US, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, those sort of places where we all share information and entertainment. Okay, so with that aside, what we started off with was the arms, and specifically crossed arms. So this is a really obvious gesture. It's not a hidden away one that you've actually got to really look for. It's quite clear when somebody has their arms crossed. Now, again, it can just mean that they are cold, so pay attention to the context of the situation. But it can also mean that they are bored, defiant, angry, and possibly even nervous. It might be a protective way of crossing their arms, so they're protecting their body. All of those things are negative. You don't have crossed arms in a positive way. That there's no positive signal that can come from crossing your arms. So crossing the arms, sorry, let me start again. People often say that I cross my arms because it feels comfortable. Now, I mentioned in the training, try crossing your arms when you're feeling happy. And it just feels really awkward. Another little clever trick to do is to think about which way do you cross your arms? Do you cross left over right or right over left? Then do it and you'll have a normal way or a natural way. Most people have a normal or natural way that they cross their arms, be it left over right or right over left. There doesn't seem to be a reason between why you would do right over left or left over right. It's not to do with your dominant hand or the dominant side of your brain or anything, but we do have a preferred way of doing it. Then try doing it the other way and it feels really awkward. So it's really quite unusual. It's an unusual feeling, but it's also very strange as to why that happens. Now, some of the things with crossed arms is what's happening with the hands while the arms are crossed. So you might find that normally you would just slide your hands sort of under your arms or however, especially if you're cold, that's a good way of warming yourself up. But if the hands are clenched while they're crossed, that's a really good sign of like real anger and rage, or even that somebody's holding something back. So they might be wanting to really shout at you and say, you are wrong. And their way of dealing with that is to clench their fists while they're hands. So look for that one. Actually, I'm trying to show you on here. I should have moved the camera back a little bit. Actually clenching the top of the arms while your arms are crossed is again another sign, but this is more of a I'm feeling nervous or anxious, or I'm not secure in this current situation, rather than anger. We don't tend to squeeze our own skin in anger in that crossed arms situation. So there's just a couple of extra things that you can look for when you're looking at whether what people are actually communicating with their crossed arms. Now, I've got some people online. Can you just put in the comments hello or whatever, and that then lets me pop up and see who is actually there rather than you just being a number. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. And if you're watching this on replay, still comments and queries are more than welcome to be added. And I am watching the Facebook group throughout the day. As I mentioned, I'm going to go and charge my phone soon so I can continue to pay attention to what's going on in the group, even though I have no power. Okay, so I think that was what I wanted to say about crossed arms. I'm going to take a drink of coffee and I'm going to find out what this button means. Excellent. Okay, thank you. And for those who are just joining us, again, apologies. We had a storm yesterday. I'm still without power, heading towards 24 hours later. And so we are back to using the mobile again, because at least I've got a power bank and I'm able to charge that up. All right, coffee, and then we'll continue on. All right, so the only other thing that we need to add about arms is in relation to the open and closed body language. that we talked about. So closed body language, obviously the arms are in close, or they might even be straight down the side, but they'll be in close to the body. Whereas open body language, they might, maybe sitting in the chair, using the armrests, or standing up. They're just taking up a bit more space. Let's move on to hands. Now the hands, they are very, very informative, because we tend to not think about them a huge amount. We use them a lot when we're talking, this sort of movement, whatever it is that's natural for you. And because we're moving them all the time, we forget to keep it in control and in check, and to make sure that what we're communicating with our words matches with what we're communicating with our hands. So if you're watching somebody else and analysing their behaviour, certainly looking at their hands is a really great place. Now, there are so many hand gestures. I think I went almost to 1,000 words when I was writing the initial post on this, because there are so many different gestures that I could tell you about. And in fact, I just totally removed the section about the different places on your face that you can touch, because it is such a huge amount of information. So I've tried to narrow this down to a few that you will see quite often. But certainly let me know if you have some that you've seen that you're not sure about, or some that you really like to look out for because they're really great messages. But I'll run through a few of them now, but I have so many more that I could tell you about. And those of you who are interested, TikTok. I have daily videos on TikTok, and there's lots of hand gestures and movements that I've included on there for you. Okay, so rubbing the hands together quickly or slowly. So rubbing the hands together, it can be a self-pacifying behaviour. So we talked about that right at the beginning, that people who want to make themselves, actually, did we even talk about that? Was that on TikTok? Self-pacifying behaviours are things that we do to make ourselves feel better. And so skin on skin, this rubbing motion makes us feel better. So it can be that we do this as a pacifying behaviour, but it tends to be a slow movement. We don't want to build up friction to make ourselves feel better. We just want to move those hands slowly. So that if you see somebody doing that, it's a good sign that they're probably thinking about something, that they're feeling a little bit negative, and yeah, they're trying to make themselves feel better. If they're rubbing their hands quickly like this, it's likely they think they're about to get the sale. They're feeling good. It's a positive movement. It's kind of a way of releasing some of that tension and positive tension that they have in the whole body, but by rubbing their hands together quickly. So yeah, pay attention if you see rubbing hands, whether it's slow or whether it's fast. Okay, what have we got next? Steepling of the fingers. So that's this one. You will see this all the time now that you're looking for it. So you'll see it in politicians and leaders when you see them giving speeches and things on TV. But you will see it literally in the workplace. I've caught myself, because obviously I record a lot of what I do. I caught myself doing this one a few times. I'm obviously pretty proud of some of the things that I say, and I'm pretty sure they're factual. And so yeah, if you see that one, it just means that that person believes what they're saying is true. Doesn't mean it is true, it means that they believe it is true. So there's a slight distinction there. Okay, so closed hands and gestures, or hidden hands, are a sign of insecurity. And it's basically a negative sign. So again, like we said with the crossed arms never signal something positive. Closed hands and hidden hands, there's very rarely you would do those sort of movements if you were feeling positive and confident and good. So closed hands is obviously just, you can't see the palms, they're not open. But a hidden hand, so we can hide them if we're sitting down. We can hide them by putting them under our legs. We can put them in our pockets. We can put them behind our backs. So basically anywhere where the other person can't see our hands means that it's a hidden hand gesture. So I think, yep, no, I've talked about pockets in a minute. Okay, that's okay. So folded hands are a good sign of negative attitude or frustration. So this is sort of the folded hands. You might see it, in front of the body. If people are at the table, you might see it actually resting on the table in front of them. So again, it's a closed hand gesture that you are not seeing the palms. So it means that it's a negative gesture that the person is doing. And often it means that the person is becoming impatient. So if you start to see this sign, it might mean either wind up the conversation, or it might mean move on to the next topic. So especially like if you're in a meeting environment, and you're looking around the table and you're seeing a lot of people with their hands folded. And I mean, there's a variety of ways you can fold your hands. Like, it doesn't have to be exactly holding hands with yourself. But if you see that, then it's probably either a good idea to pass the baton to somebody else, or move on in some way. Okay. Oh, the OK symbol. That was a good segue, wasn't it? The OK signal. So this is the OK sign for here in Australia. I know this gesture has other meanings in other cultures, but for here, this is the OK sign. And when we do this, for us, basically, it means, yep, good job, well done, you keep going, you're doing okay. If you see this, and you will often see it when people are actually gesturing, and now you're looking for it, you will actually be able to find it, I promise. You will see that their finger and thumb don't actually touch. If they don't touch, this means that they're not 100% sure that what they're saying is correct. So again, it could be true. It doesn't mean that it's, they're being deceitful, but it does mean that they're not 100% sold on what it is that they're doing. And right now, I'm literally doing this in my lab. So you can see it's not exactly the okay, sort of okay, but it's still that finger and thumb are touching. So I'm pretty happy with what I'm telling you. I'm not the only one that says this. I have learnt that from others who are more expert than I am. Okay, so we've talked about the authoritative of the okay. All right, and the final one is the thumbs. So showing your thumbs is a sign of confidence, of dominance, of all sorts of things that are involved with being authoritative and in control. So if you put your hands in your pockets, make sure you have your thumbs on the outsides of the pockets so people can see. And it's quite comfortable. There's really not much difference between having your thumbs on the inside and having them on the outside. But the actual way that people come across when they have their thumbs on the outside is that they're much more in control and confident. If those thumbs hide away with the whole hand, then it's a suggestion that you're feeling pretty nervous and not sure of yourself at all. And if you reverse the gesture, so your hands are on the outside but your thumbs are hidden away, again, it's not quite as full on as hiding the entire hand away, but it is still, I'm feeling pretty negative, and I don't like this situation overly much. For those online, just pop a little comment so I know who's here. All I get at the moment is a number, so once I see a comment, I get to know who I'm talking to, so pop that in there. And those who are watching on the replay, make sure you add your comments in, and when I get to charge my phone up, I will jump on and answer any of those questions. Now, one of the things that I did want to point out in relation, or was to tell you a little story in relation to, hi, thank you, is in relation to the thumbs and hands in the pockets. And so when I started, I'd been an investigator for, I don't know, 7 years or something. And I moved to a new job where I actually had to go out into pubs and hotels and clubs and at night time when they were busy and conduct investigations. So I'd got to the point where I was feeling quite comfortable, sitting in an interview room or going through a computer forensically. Those sort of things were fine. But actually being out in the public environment with a lot of people around you, trying to gather evidence, speak to witnesses, deal with the issue right then and there, I actually found it quite scary. And I noticed quite quickly that my body language was shrinking away. I was obviously showing to anybody who was paying attention to body language that I wasn't comfortable, and I wasn't showing that I was the one in a position of authority. So what I quickly realized was that as soon as I started to feel that way, straight away, I hid my thumbs away in my pockets. And most of the time I was standing up, so that was just a comfortable way to stand. Now, what I did was, once I realized this, was as soon as I noticed that my thumbs were starting to bury their way into my pockets, was to swap that around, and so make sure my fingers were in my pockets and my thumbs were on the outside. Now, not only was that then communicating to those around me that I was feeling more confident, but it actually made me feel more confident. So like I talked about yesterday, that whole idea of the brain goes, I'm going to stand like this, and so therefore that makes me feel good or bad. Let's say bad in this situation. I'm going to put my thumbs away, so that makes me feel less confident. My thumbs being away tells my brain I am less confident, and it just keeps cycling. If I then swap that around and I'm standing there, and I clearly remember the first time I did this, we'd found a 16-year-old in playing the pokies, the poker machines at one of these hotels. And so him and his mates were, they were feeling pretty bad about themselves, but the owner of the hotel was like, well, this isn't my fault. They look 18. And so I was feeling a little bit intimidated, and I remembered and went, oh, don't let your thumbs go in your pockets. And straight away, I felt more confident and was able to then deal with the situation in a much better way than if I'd been this scared little person with my thumbs in my pocket. So that's a really great example of a tiny little change that you can make that changes the way others perceive you and the way you feel about yourself in general. All right, I need to take a sip of coffee, but we are almost to the end. So if you have any questions about anything we've done this week, pop it in the comments and I'll answer it. I literally made the hot water on my barbecue. And my light for my recording is running off my laptop, which is getting very low in battery. But no, we have plans in place for the rest of the day. We're pretty versatile and resilient here. All right, so that's it for today's training. Make sure that you pop your thoughts and comments and things that you've observed into the training post in the Facebook group. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about feet and legs, and we're going to wind all of this up. So we're going to tie all of the things together that you've done so far, as well as go through what the feet and legs can tell us. I'll probably run a little bit longer tomorrow. I'm not expecting it to be more than 45 minutes, but just because I do want to make sure that we have not only covered the feet and legs, which is tomorrow's training, but drawn all of this in together. And I'm going to talk about an exciting little thing I have on, which is going to go much, much deeper into things like all of those hand gestures, which I wasn't able to tell you about today, including the ones touching your face. So thank you. Have a great evening, day, night, whatever it is that you are in the world. And I will see you soon. Bye.